Most people think Rich Dad Poor Dad says, never go into debt. That's wrong. And that misunderstanding has cost people life-changing opportunities, from business loans to career-boosting degrees. He didn't say that. In fact, he said the opposite. But somehow everyone missed the most important part of his message. Here's what Kiyosaki actually teaches about debt, and why getting this wrong could be the difference between staying broke and building real wealth. My name is The Honest Dude, and I break down money concepts that actually matter. If you want to understand what Rich Dad Poor Dad really says about debt instead of just following bad advice, make sure to subscribe. The misunderstanding that costs people money. Let's start with what everyone gets right about Rich Dad Poor Dad. Kiyosaki's core framework is simple. Assets put money in your pocket. Liabilities take money out of your pocket. Your goal is to acquire as many assets as possible and as few liabilities as possible. Pretty straightforward, right? Most people can recite this definition by heart. They know a house you live in is a liability because it costs you money every month. They know stocks are assets because they can generate dividends and appreciate in value. But here's what people miss. Kiyosaki never said debt itself is bad. He said bad debt is bad. There's a massive difference, and understanding it could change your entire financial future. And later in this video, I'll give you 3 quick questions to instantly tell if any debt is good or bad. Good debt versus bad debt. The simple rule everyone missed. Here's what Kiyosaki actually said. Use good debt to acquire assets faster. Avoid bad debt that buys liabilities. Bad debt is debt used to buy liabilities. Things that take money out of your pocket every month. Your car loan, credit card debt for stuff you don't need, that oversized mortgage you can barely afford. Good debt is debt used to acquire assets, things that put money in your pocket. Investment property mortgages, business loans that generate more income than they cost, even student loans for degrees that significantly increase your earning potential. So the real rule isn't never borrow, it's borrow for assets, never for liabilities. Let me show you what this looks like in practice. Bad debt example. You finance a $40,000 car at 7% interest. That's roughly $800 per month for 5 years. The car loses value every day, and after 5 years, you've paid thousands in interest for something now worth maybe $15,000. That debt made you poorer. Good debt example. You take out a $200,000 loan at 6% to buy a rental property that generates $2,500 in monthly rent. After the mortgage, taxes, insurance, and maintenance, you pocket around $300 per month. Plus, the property appreciates and your tenants pay down the loan. That debt is making you richer. So here's the simple takeaway. The difference isn't the amount of debt, it's what the debt is buying. Stability first. What Kiyosaki doesn't always emphasize. Now, here's the nuance Kiyosaki doesn't always emphasize clearly, but it's crucial. You need financial stability before you can effectively use debt as a wealth-building tool. If you don't have an emergency fund and steady income, even good debt can turn into a nightmare. You might buy the right assets, but if you can't make the payments during tough times, you'll lose everything. The smart approach: build your foundation first. Emergency fund, stable income, basic financial security. Then you can safely use good debt to accelerate wealth building. This is what I'd add to Kiyosaki's philosophy. Leverage only works when you can survive the downturns. His advice works best once your financial house is in order. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, focus on stability before leverage. The student loan trap, where people go very wrong. This confusion about good debt versus bad debt is destroying people's lives, especially when it comes to education. I've read about people refusing student loans for degrees in engineering, medicine, or law because they think Kiyosaki said, avoid all debt. Meanwhile, they're stuck in retail jobs making $25,000 per year when they could be earning $80,000 or more. Here's the math. A $40,000 loan for a degree that boosts your salary by $30,000 a year pays for itself in less than 2 years and adds hundreds of thousands over your lifetime. That's good debt. But a loan for a degree with no clear career path or earnings upside, that's questionable at best. The key is running the numbers. If the degree increases lifetime earnings more than the cost of tuition plus interest, it's probably good debt. Education can be an asset, but only if the math works. How the wealthy actually use debt. Here's the secret that separates the wealthy from everyone else. Wealthy people don't avoid debt, they master it. The leverage principle: if you can borrow at 6% to invest in something that returns 10%, you're making 4% on money that isn't even yours. Let's say you have $50,000. You could buy one rental property for $50,000 cash, or use it as down payments to control 5 properties worth $250,000 total. Which builds wealth faster? The 5 properties, assuming they're good deals. That's leverage, using good debt to multiply what you control. Business loan example. Imagine you could buy a profitable business for $100,000 that earns $30,000 a year after expenses. You could wait 10 years to save the money, or take a business loan and buy it now, letting the business income pay off the loan. Of course, this only works if the business is actually profitable. Otherwise, the debt crushes you. That's exactly what Kiyosaki means when he says, make money work for you. The debt accelerates your wealth instead of you waiting a decade to save up. Kiyosaki built his fortune using business loans and investor money. His entire philosophy is built on this principle. But if you think all debt is evil, you'd never even consider these opportunities. The actual enemy: credit cards plus house confusion. Now let's be clear, there is debt that is absolutely terrible, and Kiyosaki never sugarcoats this. Credit card debt for consumer purchases is financial suicide. Paying 20% interest for clothes, electronics, dinners out, and random stuff that loses value immediately? That's the opposite of wealth building. The average American household carries over $9,000 in credit card debt. At 20% interest, if you're only making minimums, that's roughly $1,800 a year just in interest. That's money that could have gone into assets instead. This is the debt Kiyosaki warns against. Not all debt, this kind of debt. Now let's clear up the house confusion. Kiyosaki never said, never buy a house. He said your primary residence is a liability, not an asset. Why? Because it takes money out of your pocket every month without generating income. Buying a house isn't an investment, it's a lifestyle choice. And that's fine. But don't confuse it with wealth building. Stretching to buy way too much house because it's an investment? That's financial suicide. A mortgage on a rental property that pays you every month? Totally different. That's good debt. Here's the simple checklist I promised earlier. 1. Will this debt buy an asset or a liability? Borrowing for income-generating assets equals potential good debt. Borrowing for things that cost you money equals bad debt. 2. Is the return higher than the interest rate? If the asset's income beats the cost of borrowing, the math is in your favor. 3. Can I afford the payments if things go wrong? Even good debt becomes bad if you can't cover the payments. Always keep a buffer. The bottom line on debt. Rich Dad, Poor Dad's message about debt is actually pretty sophisticated. Debt is a tool. It can either build wealth or destroy it, depending on how you use it. What Kiyosaki said, bad debt keeps you poor by charging you interest on things that lose value. Good debt can make you rich by letting you acquire assets faster than saving alone. What I'd add, none of this works unless you first build financial stability. Debt is a tool, but tools can cut both ways. The smart move is understanding Kiyosaki's actual message. Use good debt for assets, avoid bad debt like the plague, and always make sure you can handle payments even when things go wrong. That's what Rich Dad, Poor Dad actually teaches about debt. Not avoid all debt, but use debt intelligently to build wealth faster. The choice is yours. You can keep misunderstanding the message and miss opportunities, or you can start using debt the way wealthy people do, as leverage to acquire more assets. Don't fear debt. Learn to use it intelligently. Drop a comment with what you think is good versus bad debt in your own life. I'll be reading them all. And check out this video where I break down the real math on renting versus buying, because understanding when debt makes sense is crucial for making smart housing decisions in today's market. I'll see you in the next one.